Good morning, everyone. It's a absolute pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure to be among a lot of you who are shaping brands for the future. And it's interesting that I'm going to anchor this small talk on a brand which is iconic, which is so-called heritage, which has deep roots in this state, and how hopefully we are managing to keep it relevant, how we are managing the heritage and yet trying to see that it remains relevant with the times to come. So on that note, what I'm going to start the day with is that you have brands and you have brands, and brands means that we celebrate longevity. So for generations, if I've known a brand, right, the idea is it is very iconic. But from my point of view, I don't think longevity by itself is an achievement. And thus, relevance is that you can be straddling years and years and years together, but only if you're relevant with each changing demographics, each changing generation, if you are providing something that they need at that point in time, do you remember and do you celebrate the longevity of it? And in that fashion, a lot of global brands. So yes, it is Adgully, it is CMO Charcha, it is marketing, and marketing is anchored rootly and deeply around a lot of brands. And what you see here is a lot of brands which many of us have grown up with. So these are brands from the world, and on the other side is a lot of brands that I have grown up with, many of you here might have grown up with, but how many of these brands have actually remained? Some of them remained, some of them carried on, some of them got busted. So even for the big brands, survival is not guaranteed. And which is why time and again the question of relevance crops up again and again. So Lego, just a quick check, it's been there for eternity, and it's built itself over and over again, it reinvented it. Today's times are no longer the times of Mandrake and Phantom. You moved on to the Harry Potters and the Star Wars, etc., and the brand kept abreast. However, at the same time, you had, blockbusters, etc., which have gone out thanks to the Netflixes of the world. In the same way, Coke has managed, and I'm not going to dwell on it. Coca-Cola has been there earlier, Coca-Cola has been there now, keeps reinventing itself again and again, but nicely, BlackBerry has gone out. You have a lot of Apple, you have a lot of Samsung, Nokia came in and continues to be there, but not in the same sheen. But BlackBerry, completely out, somewhere there is the bus. Asian Paints, their painting services, and many more extensions, and remains decades and decades and decades. But a very iconic brand like Rajkoot once upon a time, currently a bit busted. Amul, iconic. Longevity, yes, but remain relevant years and years, very topical in its communication. Unfortunately, Jet Airways, once upon a time, B premium, very great aircraft carrier, etc., financial health, busted. And thus, the problem is that the more iconic that you get, it becomes very, very challenging to make a change. It's very risky, or at least that's what you think, that it is very risky. But if you don't, you'll be fondly remembered. And that's why I said rooted in Calcutta, in this state of West Bengal, emerging from here, one of the very few brands which we call iconic, very high, heavy heritage, extremely rich. And that, can it manage this transition? Can it be relevant to the young marketeers, the young consumers, the Gen Zs? Else, there will be a time very soon that we will fondly remember Eveready. Right? It no longer may be relevant, but we'll be fondly remembering. And thus, for us, the challenge is not how to keep the heritage. That we have a lot, tons and tons of heritage. The challenge is how do you use this heritage to pivot, to reinvent, right? To be relevant to youngsters, Gen Z in particular, etc. And I will take you to some of the past communication just to establish the heritage.
Give me red. If you're not red, you're dead.
So give me red. Somewhere in the early 90s, this was very iconic. At that time, it looked like India was starting up as well. And this was a symbolism of a brand of almost, it was cult. Expression of freedom, wanting to do something, almost like what the Honorable Minister said, starting up. Somewhere we find ourselves starting up probably now as well. And if we had continued to do this, which was iconic at that point in time, cult, right? Expression of freedom, youth connected with it, yet those were the early 90s. And if I were to do this and continue with it over 2026 to the next decade, the brand will be fondly remembered and not relevant enough. And thus, in that foray, we started the work on trying to modernize it, right? And while we started the work to modernize it, there's a context. Earlier, television delivering GRPs was the easy means, I would say easy, was the primary means of reaching out to the consumer. Today, it's shrinking. Content is shrinking. There is, you're bidding on search, your connected TV, algorithms are in play, whether you need to be up or down. You necessarily cannot influence algorithms. And the consumer, the clean, pure consumer who earlier was watching television, today has, I forgot the count, there are some 20 interfaces. TV is just one of them. The phone, the print, the outdoor, the programmatic, the search, the e-commerce platforms. Everyone is talking to you. Everyone who's talking to you is trying to influence you to do something which it believes that you want to do, but you haven't yet decided whether you want to do it or not. And this is a changing generation. And to be a part of it, we started with a journey. So that journey started by actually changing the logo, symbolism. But it means a lot to its employees and to the consumer, saying from give me red, it started having a look of an ellipse, very close to an infinity logo, with a mild change in the tag, saying give me power, give me red. So give me red was an expression of freedom, energy, power. Give me power, give me red is an expression of trying to empower you with that energy. And the entire thing about infinity is simple, infinite possibilities for a brand deeply rooted and anchored from a state like West Bengal. And thus, one would assume that how would you do it? We at the end are in the business of selling batteries. Who buys batteries? The last time you bought a battery, you don't know how you changed it. You probably sent the domestic help to buy batteries. No, sorry. Nowadays, you don't send the domestic help. You take the phone and you call someone called Swiggy or someone called Zepto, and you press a little bit of buttons here and there, and in 8.5 minutes, you have a battery in your house. Earlier it takes more than 10 minutes to go down, go to the Kinara shop, choose a battery, get it back, etc., etc. Now look at the distribution model that has emerged, that in 8.5 minutes you can have a battery. If you are in a better locality, maybe 6 minutes. You don't even need the domestic help. So that is the changing environment. So what? Battery is a battery. Battery is a battery for the remote. Battery is a battery for the wall clock. Battery is also a battery for the torch. Who uses the torch? All of you. Every respected gentleman here will have iPhones of the highest order or Samsungs or whatever I said from the Nokias. And everyone of that has a light. So what is the use of a flashlight and what is the use of a battery? So should we shut down the organization which deep heritage and roots? No. That is the entire purpose is about how do you reinvent it. So for us, then at one point in time we were very iconic. We still sell those red batteries. We sell it in 4.5 to 5 million outlets in India. India has some 9 or 10 million outlets. Unilever reaches to about 8 million outlets. Godrej reaches to 8 million. We reach to about 5 million with these small batteries. But no longer is India using batteries for the torch and the wall clock. The transistor is unknown and only the simple remote. Now it is using it for the medical devices, the blood pressure machines. Post-COVID penetration is very high. For the high-end toys, for the trimmer, for the optical mouse, for the keyboard, for the CCTV cameras, etc. There are batteries and batteries, but these batteries need much more power. One can say, what is the issue? Rechargeable batteries are coming in. Of course, they are coming in. But not everything can be rechargeable. And the need for power has gone up. So for us, it is a fantastic time because from those red, simple batteries, because the devices were simple, given that over the next 20 years, this country at the current GDP growth is going to be one of the very few where the penetration of high drain device that we call, which all of these are single digit, is only going to grow up. You need simple, stronger batteries. And right now, we came up over the last 2 years with a product called the Ultima battery. But a much, much more powerful battery. 400 times more powerful than the normal batteries that we are used to asking our domestic help to pick it up. Because our devices are going up. Toys consume batteries. And if you look at our communication, all of this is to stay relevant. Because the first impact is on the product and then you communicate. So the battery communication, what you saw is from a television point of view. But as I said, you saw earlier that the consumer touch point is multiple. So from there it goes on to something that we chose, which is, let's say, the entire World Cup happened and you put your spots there. You move on to digital side of it. You know, you have the IG, you have Meta, you go to YouTube, and you build it with various kinds of curiosity, content, shorter context. Then you go on to Comic Con, right, where again you are talking to an audience. Essentially, these are audience which are parents with kids. And if you are parents with kids, you have a lot of batteries. You buy them by the kilos. And I'm very, very, admirable of all the parents around. They help us grow our business and stay relevant. And then you have the standard outdoor and the print. But it is a wholesome affair to be able to reach your target audience in a mixture of media. And while that was about communication, you also ensure that if you are very convinced that your product is a winner for the next decade, you put up a plant. And as of the year, we set up India's only alkaline plant, etc., and which is very much now made in India as powerful as it when we were getting it from outside, no longer dependent on the imports. And we didn't stop there. A pair of simple lithium batteries costs 500 rupees, 250 each. The only point is, if you put it into your blood pressure machines, you will forget that the machine has a battery. Because you don't need to change it for the next 5 years. Right? And that's how, from a simple battery to an alkaline battery to a lithium battery, these segmentations and gradations are occurring because the nature of the devices are changing. Which every demographics, there is, the youngsters will look at gaming consoles, for a certain age and above, you will look at very reliable working of your medical devices, and that is how the evolution of battery happens. Flashlights, as I so said, if all of you have a mobile phone, you don't need a flashlight. Do we shut down the category? No. It is precisely at that time that you pivot, correct? And let's say as we pivoted, we launched something called the Siren. It is India's loudest torch. So for a torch which is only known to provide light, this is a torch which provides light and sound. Yeah, the TVC did not, while we were marketing a torch which had the highest level of sound, the TVC did not have a sound. So often people look forward saying, when will the sound come? This was a silent TVC. It was done where the protagonist itself is someone who is mute. And the protagonist has had challenging times in her lifespan. That is how somewhere we integrated it, saying who better than a torch with a loud sound which can probably give her a certain amount of voice. So that is about trying to stay relevant in a category which is today compromised potentially by the availability in urban India of a lot of cell phones, and thus you pivot to empowerment. You're trying to empower many facets of society, including women, and working women are on the rise, saying that should you ever be in a tight spot, there is something which is simply simple and mechanical, where you pull the chain and there is a reasonable amount of sound that comes out for ensuring that in a 1.4 billion population country, someone does come for aid. At the same time, and thus you see that from a communication earlier, which was celebrity based, we were pivoting to a generation which probably, empathizes and connects better with authenticity. Right? So someone who understands what is realism, someone who appreciates the fact that the brand is stark and bold and has very sharp product delivery and solutions, right? And that is where we tend to kind of move out from the realm of celebrities. 60% agricultural income for India, GDP is based on their poor monsoons can crash GDPs, etc. And given that farmers at grassroots spend at least more than 7 or 8 months in a year trying to hedge and look for their crops, one of the biggest problems is driving out cattle. And when cattle come at about 1 in the morning and they're trying to destroy your harvest, etc., how do you drive them out? And thus something which is called a torch, which is we call it shoal. It's a torch with a very heavy beam and a very heavy noise. So imagine at 1 in the morning, if you are in a solitary farm and not in the hustle and bustle of the city, the amount of noise it can make to ward off animals, ward off strays. In India, it is just launched, and let's see how it takes out. But let's say feedback from outside the country specifically is very high, because you go to some of the American farms and all their fenced, they're electrified, right? So it is intrusive. So this is one of the very elementary, non-intrusive way of trying to ward off animals, and hopefully that should have an impact on the farms and their yields, and it saves and the economic income grows up. I can't quantify it. I'm definitely sure it has a purpose and it will serve. Right? This is a hybrid torch. You have hybrid cars. It works on petrol and things like that. This works on both a rechargeable battery and the normal cells. So highly unlikely that you will ever go out of light should you need it, because it is a double powered kind of a thing. That was a hybrid for you. It's a patent applied kind of a thing. One of the very few patents in the torch category. While we do a lot of products, we make it relevant for today's solutions. We try and communicate in as many touch points as possible with the target audience. Sometimes for a new generation, there is a strong link for purpose as well, right? And with the product and its communication can connect well with a slightly stronger purpose, I think the message lands much more strongly.
Every year during Visarjan, there are many trucks. Yellow trucks, green trucks, big trucks, small trucks, many trucks. And that means many black smoke. A lot of smoke, but not our truck. Hi, my name is Loki. got invited to the state's official Pujo Carnival. Big truck, us, then again, big truck. Pussy was again jumping with joy, and this time I was too. Our resurgence caused no pollution. All thanks to this Babu.
So, at a time when the puja is a big spectrum, half of Calcutta and West Bengal is on the roads. Great for outdoors, honestly. Heavily commercialized and probably rightly so. In a situation like that, our ability to probably get together with an NGO and have an impact onto a children's small school and have a special pujo for them kind of meant a lot. I think this was something that we did with our batteries last year. At the same time, we spoke about a simple device called a torch that can make a sound, right? And what better way to exaggerate, amplify the sound again in a forum like the Durga Puja. I will show you a small snippet of how this works for a certain purpose as well. So thus, in a territory like the Puja where visuals are amplified, the ability to use sound and noise as a medium while trying to play the route of caution and trying to be dedicated towards a certain purpose definitely has gone a long way for us. We've expanded more than batteries and flashlights into various kinds of lighting. What kind of lighting? There are lights all over this hall as well. There are lights on the top, there are lights on me, there are lights on you, etc. There are many kinds of lights. But the idea is, how do you stay relevant? What is true to your core? So lights for us are characterized by lights that require potentially batteries. And lights which come up when there are no lights, which is what it means is that if there is an emergency and you have power cuts and you have no lights, we make some of the better emergency lights in the country today. And those are powered by various kinds of batteries, again making us relevant. It is not that we are the only ones that make it, but the ones that we make definitely throw out much more power and light than the ones that some of the other ones make. We've just, on the strength of our batteries, what is called liquid vaporizer. So I'm sure many of you probably use liquid anti-mosquito liquid vaporizers at home. For the last 2 or 3 decades, most of these vaporizers are plugged in. There are various smart, big Indian and multinational brands which are plugged in, whether it is here or outside the country as well. This one's the only one of its kind that doesn't need to be plugged in. Correct? Again, it's been applied for a patent and very commonly currently being proliferated across the various kinds of distribution channels. It was absolutely necessary to move on to more power, and thus powering up, mobile phone, etc., comes very naturally to a brand like Eveready. Mosquito rackets again, something that requires charge, something that requires batteries, we are there. And what is most important is while a lot of these product innovations at this point in time keep us very, very relevant and stay away from being tagged only as a heritage brand, I think the dynamics of availability, as I said, from traditional channels to many other modern channels are emerging. And what used to be days to get these products for your house now can be in minutes, which I mentioned that in 8.5 minutes you can probably get batteries in your house before you can reach the nearest Kinara. And thus, in partnership with that,
Get 400% longer lasting and delivered in 10 minutes on Zepto.
सत्य जानना चाहते हो तो ध्यान दो और पूछते रहो कि मैं कौन हूं।
So, in line with the emerging channel and to be relevant, it is necessary to partner with some of these relevant channels as well while you look into communications and products, etc. So on that note, I think my key takeaways will be that there's a need for leadership, there's a need for culture. There is certainly a need for innovating on your products as you remain relevant on the various kinds of digital ecosystems to be able to ensure that you are communicating and your content is adapted for that. Partnerships, as I mentioned, continues to draw something equally as the distribution channel for a fast-moving consumer brand remains an important pivot. And finally, legacy is not a same legacy, something which you use to pivot and to springboard to what you see in the future to be relevant. With that, thank you.